Philosophy, philosophy, philosophy. So, you want to become a philosopher? Well, first thing to ask is, do I have what it takes? Look in the mirror. Do you like what you see? Well, that's too bad if you do, because philosophers are famously ugly. Sure, Camus wrote a book or two, but that pretty boy was more like the James Dean of existentialism. The real substance lay in the writings of Sartre, and he was butt ugly. It's long been known that a deficiency in one faculty is compensated by strength in others. You could call this the Stephen Hawking's principle. There's a totally blind man that has learnt to echolocate like a bat. He does this by clicking with his mouth well enough that he can ride a bike. And he goes around teaching other blind people how to do it. Well, he says he's blind, and we all take his word for it, but I have my doubts. Anyway, it would be very unlikely that a sighted person would ever have enough incentive to put the amount of effort into learning this trick. Young beauties know all too well that you don't need a personality when you're hot. At the very least, if you suck at anything intellectual, you can console yourself with the idea that maybe it's just because you're too good looking. Descartes, seen by many as the father of modern philosophy, notoriously ugly. That's a portrait, remember? They have to make you as attractive as possible. Socrates, king of philosophers, reportedly hideous. Do you ever wonder why nobody ever took a photo of him? Some wonder if the real reason that he was sentenced to death wasn't because they couldn't stand looking at him. So, if you're too good looking, maybe philosophy isn't for you. Maybe you should try other life pursuits, like modelling. But if you do have what it takes, are you also willing to do what it takes to be a philosopher? Philosophers aren't popular people. It goes with the territory. There's a huge desire in humans to conform to the ideas of those around us. Civilization probably relies on this sheepishness. But philosophers and great thinkers and pioneering scientists seem to lack this drive, or they have a deeper drive for something greater. While some are humiliated or even persecuted for their unpopular ideas, the image that best represents the antisocial ways of the philosopher is the hermit. Spinoza was a sort of double exile, excommunicated from his Jewish community in Holland, which was itself an exiled diaspora. He lived a quiet life of solitude and contemplation, following reason rather than the whims of man. Many of the world's greatest thinkers go through periods, if not a lifetime, of isolation. Thoreau's masterpiece was from Walden Pond in the woods, not New York City. Gautama the Buddha had to run away from his kingdom to find inner peace in solitude. Which leads to another common characteristic of great philosophers. They're not big on children or family. It makes sense that if you go to great lengths to get away from people, why would you spawn your own? Also, the existential angst that many people have, that itch gets scratched when children come along. Certainly seemed to for Robert Pirsig, who wrote that modern masterpiece, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Every time a child is born, a philosopher dies. We just don't seem to pose those deeper questions of meaning and existence when there's a little shit screaming in your ear. Finally, philosophers have a long tradition of hating cats and getting off on torturing them. What better way to show that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts than by cutting a cat in half several times? Then there was Schrodinger's thought experiment, the physicist. which involved locking a cat in a sealed box with a vial of poison and a radioactive meter that could smash the vial and kill the cat. His thought experiment was used to illustrate ideas in quantum mechanics, but he could have devised many thought experiments to illustrate his points. But he seemed to get off on the one that involved imprisoning and poisoning a cat. Descartes literally tortured animals to prove that they were soulless machines and didn't actually feel pain, although they acted like they did. He dissected a living dog in public, so imagine what he did to cats behind closed doors. In short, if you want to be a philosopher, give up on trying to look good or be popular or have a family. And remember to kick a cat whenever you get the chance. Which does make you wonder, is philosophy just an excuse for being an ugly sadist with no friends? Subscribe or the cat gets it. Philosophy. Philosophy. Philosophy.